When I moved to Denmark, I tried to disappear. Black clothes, safe choices, anything to blend in. But then my work went viral. Suddenly I was being photographed, pitching to investors, and nothing I wore felt like me. So I decided if nothing fits, I'll design my own uniform with pockets for everything I actually use. And somehow this changed everything. My confidence, my presence, even how people see my work.
Everything changed when my work went viral in the architecture world. Now, architecture and design, they're kind of divorced from the regular celebrity of the real world, but still, people knew who I was, and I was getting invited to do lots of press tours, lots of public speaking, and as somebody who felt very uncomfortable and nervous in front of a camera, this is actually the moment when I started my YouTube channel to practice this skill set and to get better at presenting myself on the spot. Presenting a lot of the time felt really difficult because a lot of the clothing that I was wearing was really tight. It didn't fit me in all the right places, and sometimes seeing myself in photographs, I could feel how uncomfortable I felt on that stage in the photograph. I didn't really know how to address this. I just thought maybe I just have to find the right clothing off the shelf to have this confidence back. It just has to hit in the right places. But how do I do this? I then had to wear these outfits to present to investors and to pitch almost every other week. And even though I was wearing power suits to try and promote this confidence, not only in what I was growing as my company, but also in myself, I didn't feel confident because it hurt. The pants wouldn't fit quite well on my stomach. If I had to eat anything at these events, I was stressed because it would affect the way the garments looked on me. And it also, again, this worry, this fear, this tenseness in my body, it wasn't good for me to present. It wasn't good for me to feel comfortable in these spaces. And at a certain point, it sort of clicked for me that this was actually a design challenge. Clothing isn't meant to hurt all the time. It's not meant to feel so restrictive that I can't move my arms or I can't go up or down. I can't cycle in it. This is actually because the garment has not been designed for this. And what if I designed a garment for myself that let me do all the things that I have to do, that I need to do in my working life, that just felt comfortable? Turning point really kind of happened also through my sketch work in a way. I can actually pinpoint the moment it sort of started. We went to the Danish Design Museum and they had a whole textile exhibit where I started to look at the drawings and I realized that architects like Bernard Panton, they had also done textiles. So there was this clicking moment where I realized my skills as an architect, my drafting skills, my drawing skills, this is a transferable skill. This can also be applied to other disciplines. And I have always been drawn to patterns over solids. And a lot of garments these days don't have patterns because it's very difficult to pattern match sometimes the seams and things. And if they do have patterns, they're kind of really boring. I really wanted something graphic, something to stand out. So already the sort of pre-research had begun without me even realizing it, just from sketching and observing this exhibit at the Danish Design Museum. When my divorce happened, it was really this moment of come out of this and grow as a person. And instead of being afraid of this change, instead of sitting and crying all the time, maybe I can use this as the growth, the seed to build something beautiful. And so also too, I started sketching a lot more after my divorce and putting all this color into my pages again, and exploring the ways that other architects had used patterns, had thought outside of the box, had kind of broken the mold. I spent some time in Spain looking at Gaudi's work in person and drawing it. And I think looking at how Gaudi approached craft, that was the moment where I realized I can actually design my own uniform. I can design my own patterns. I can come up with a new idea and I can bring it to life with the skill set that I have. And I don't need to ask anyone's permission to do it. I can just do it. So after this transformative summer, I spent a lot of time by the ocean. I started to experiment a little bit more with my painting style. I had always had these very rigid lines when I was drawing. I started to experiment a lot more looser, a lot more graphic with my painting. And I started to abstract things a little bit more from my sketches. And this is sort of the moment that became the groundwork for this print, for this design here. A lot of people think that this might be clouds or it might just be lines, but actually this print is inspired by ocean rails, which are the movement that carves water into sand over the tides coming in. And so when you see the water by the waterfront, you'll sometimes see these lines that are very organic. And I've always been really fascinated by the lines that the sand makes when it's carved by water, because it's always different and it's temporary and it's very fleeting. It's really beautiful to see that movement in the landscape of something has been here, something has done this, and you can't really see it because it's water. So this was me trying to capture that feeling, that floatiness of the water carving something and leaving that trace behind. The thing is though, while I can create a pattern and I can sketch what I would want to wear, I don't necessarily have the skill set to bring it to life. So this is where Karina really came into play. Karina Grunning is one of my old colleagues from the time I used to work at Kia in the maintenance and operations department. She worked in the sewing lab. She was teaching students how to sew, and I made some signs for her sewing lab to not have food or drink while you're sewing. It's just standard hygiene procedures. We became really good friends out of that. And whenever I've had a question about textiles, about garments, she's a master tailor. In fact, she's the one who designed and created the official garment for Princess Isabella's official birthday photos. So she's tremendously talented, and I've always known this. So I asked her if she would help me craft my uniform and if she could advise me on what sort of fabric to use, what sort of lining to use. I had in my mind, I knew what garments looked best on me, mock turtlenecks, but how to actually fabricate this, how to construct this, how about the seam placement? I had suggestions, but Karina's skill set as a tailor is really what finessed this and took it to something that not only fit me in all the right places, it also became a work of art in itself because of how she pattern matched all the seams and all the work, working with my design so that it flowed continuously up my body. I mean, just look at the pocket here. Look at the way she pattern matched that. I didn't tell her to do that. She just knew to do that from her skill set as a tailor. So a lot of times as an architect, I really have to be aware of my own blind spot. What am I good at? What am I not very good at? I know how to sew very basically, but this kind of craftsmanship, this is something that can only happen through collaboration with somebody really talented. So I was incredibly grateful to Karina for using her time and investing all of her energy and love into making this beautiful set of uniforms. Now, I do pretty much everything in these uniforms. I wear them to my corporate job, I wear them on site. You'll see photos of me in the Versammlungshus, in the Eskilstuna Culture House, where I'm wearing the uniform as I'm getting photographed by my friend who's also touring, of just trying to get around all the trash. And that's really because this just feels like a second skin when I put it on. I feel so comfortable. The cotton allows me to breathe with my skin. I'm a sweaty girl. It's sort of, it feels always very nice to have a natural fiber on versus polyester. I live in it all the time. I present in it. I've done investor presentations in it. I've pitched in it. I've just shown up to pretty much every event with it, and wearing it made me feel a lot more confident because suddenly it wasn't pinching in all the wrong places. Suddenly it just felt totally natural to be in my own skin and to project the image that I wanted to project. And that's really the beautiful thing about clothing when it fits the right way. What I didn't expect was the reaction. I was so used to sort of fading into the backdrop that it really surprised me when people on the street and people at venues would come up and talk about what I was wearing. It was sort of an icebreaker. A lot of people would just say, "Wow, I love your dress," or "Where did you get that?" And then it became the perfect opportunity to say, "Well, I designed it and I made it with my friend." And it started to become a testament to my ability to design. And what I didn't anticipate was that so many people would say, "Can I buy it?" The reality is I paid Karina hourly to produce these garments, to design also the patterns for them so that they could be cut and replicated. And that process cost about $5,000. So I didn't really want to put it into production, because to put it into production would inevitably mean that probably to get that cost down to lower to what people would actually buy it for would require some sort of trade-off, either on quality or on fair labor wages. So I tried to come up with a middle ground. I designed a t-shirt with the pattern. While it might just look like your regular black ink, it's actually algae ink that I had imported from the US. So instead of the pigment being petroleum-based, it's ink where the algae has been turned into biochar, and this is used as the pigment for the ink. And the formulation is also washable, and it's also heat resistant if you iron it. This is my own personal t-shirt. I was selling these for a while to crowdfund things for my reef company. Now that I'm no longer involved with my reef company, I've actually thought about putting in a small production again and trying to sell that to also help fundraise for my Kulturhus. So if you're interested, let me know. What had really started as a journey to find my voice, to explore, to make something that just felt right for myself suddenly turned into something that a lot of people were interested in. And it reminded me that a lot of art, a lot of architecture is just about being brave enough to show what's inside of you. I had so many ideas in all of my sketchbooks, but I was so afraid to make the first move, to really do something like this, so bold and so visible, even though my work was already so visible and being visited by so many people. It's kind of funny, isn't it? So now I'm curious. Have you felt like your clothes don't fit? And would you do something like design your own uniform?